Can you talk about the China response to COVID? How does it relate to the things you discussed in this talk?
Sure. So to start with, I think China's response to COVID was conditioned to a large extent by its response to SARS in 2004 and to the demands that had been put on it to sort of establish a healthcare system by Chinese workers. And a lot of the anger about the response to that pandemic. And so the Chinese state does seem to have initially covered up or hid a lot of the concerns that were being raised by Chinese doctors about COVID. But once it did become a major, once that information did actually become publicly available, it was obliged to carry out a much more significant process of, constructing additional hospitals, of carrying out a more extensive shutdown of the regions that were affected in comparison to what a lot of countries in the United States, or in terms of like the United States or Europe, have done. I think it's also worth pointing out that this idea being promoted by Donald Trump and by others, that China is wholly responsible for the pandemic, that this Chinese deception stopped them from being able to just defeat it at its source, is really nonsense. And you can see the fact that they have not done anything that in the time since there was public knowledge to when you started having major outbreaks to actually prepare for that. I think that is really just a red herring and an excuse. The Chinese response to, one aspect of the Chinese response to COVID, it's getting a lot of praise right now for seeming to have stopped to a large extent the spread of the disease there. However, China is reopening large sections of its economy right now, and there's always a potential for an additional outbreak. And I think the fact that China is a major competitor on the world market does play into why it needs to seek to reopen its industry, in much the same way why capitalists in the United States want to reopen our industry at the expense of human lives here.
Okay.